welcome to this week's End of Days Update, coming to you from Tulsa, Oklahoma. We had such a great time there at East Coast Believers Church in Orlando. Man, they've grown so much. Crazy to see so many people excited about Jesus. Wonderful. If you're anywhere in the South Texas area, we'll be in Galveston tomorrow night at Island Church. We'll have a great time there. Then this weekend, if you're anywhere near Atlanta, we'll be in Highland Church in Atlanta at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. as well. So come join us. There's something about being live in person. The Lord told us to forsake not the assembling of ourselves together, as some would do, especially as you see the day approaching. So that's what we're doing with the End of Days Update. It's about, we can literally see the day approaching. Things happened this last week. I know I say this a lot, but a couple of things happened. I'm like, oh, I didn't think I'd see that. Little pieces of the puzzle, all the players for the Ezekiel 38 war, one day after another, seemingly are doing something. We're talking about Turkey, Iran, and Russia, each of them doing things that just kind of shock you. And the reason why we get into it is it's not an escape theology, it's a hustle theology. I know it sounds like a lot of stuff about war, but most of the nations that are coming together, that's what you see just after the rapture is World War III. So on every continent right now, you see the reports you read, people are, we're ready for World War III, ready for World War III, ready for World War III. We'll get into a couple of things today that point us to that. But we get into it because, you know, Paul talked about the baptism 12 times, the coming of the Lord 52 times. For every one verse there is about the first coming of the Lord, there's 8 times more about the second coming. So he wants us aware. Why? Why? If you're aware, you make changes. You hustle. You don't fit the church into your life. It is your life. So let's pick up what's happened around Israel this last week. Lots of stuff is happening that are kind of like, wow, Jesus is just about to come. Probably my favorite thing was, it's sad, but it happened. Sinwar got taken out last week, and it's interesting how that came about. And even Hezbollah's replacement guy for Nasrallah got killed yesterday. So you've got each level of power in those groups getting taken out over and over and over again. Because right now you've got Hezbollah sending rockets every day. They almost had to close the airport at Ben Gurion today because there was so many rocket fire coming toward them. One thing after another with that, to the point that how crazy is this? In Caesarea, Benjamin Netanyahu's personal residence got hit by a drone 2 days ago. So that's I loved his response, like, no problem, we're going to take all of you guys out anyway, so it doesn't matter where you bomb. The IDF's Israeli Defense Forces said that Hezbollah is down to almost about 30% of what they have to fire at them. So they're working toward blowing up every site they can to stop them trying to attack Israel. You know, what happened on October 7th last year was 39 9/11. So it's a pretty big deal. And when they went into Hezbollah, Nasrallah's place he had underneath that hospital, he was about 3 levels down. They found $500 million, $500 million in cash. So what a bizarre deal to have these guys having all this money and all they want to do is annihilate Israel. So a lot of things happening. You had fireballs happening over the Great Lakes region. You got meteorites. You got floods. You got all kinds of stuff like that. We don't really ever get a chance to talk about all that because there's so much about war. You had yesterday Netanyahu meeting with Blinken, with Herzog, and all the Secretary of State from the United States has to say is calm, 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 don't attack Iran. Huge deal about what that was going about was there was some documents released from our government showing what Israel was going to do in Iran. Now that's a huge deal. Come to find out, they've got 7 different Israelis that were caught for spying. And it is interesting that our Congress had been sending a warning to the State Department about a couple of these players there, and they're the ones that released that information. So Iran's already got information released from us of what Israel's going to do. The comical thing about that is they said publicly, Biden's already told them that he gave the go-ahead for this to happen. So there's this radical fear in Iran that Israel's going to come up there and take them out. You know why? Because Israel's going to go up there and take them out. So it's intriguing to see all of it put together. You've got Putin in Russia blowing up ships that are bringing aid down to Gaza, and he's so concerned about these ships getting blown up, he thinks it's weaponry coming to the Ukraine to fire at him. You had the U.S. Defense Department say about China, China's president told the whole group, prepare for war, get your preparedness all set. Because of the blockades they pretty much set up all around Taiwan were scary enough, but then the next thing's him to say it's time for this war to start. So you're going to have things happening on so many different fronts that's kind of hard to keep up with. I watched Macron again make some more verbiage about what would happen up in the northern part of Lebanon, wanting to have a peace agreement for just to go into that one spot. Just some bizarre crazy stuff when you hear guys saying things. You're like, man, where is this coming from? But it just shows us how close we are. When you see the main players for this happening every single week do different things that point to a war, you can tell we're just about ready to see the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Often people ask me, why do I think the Ezekiel 38 war is after the rapture? Well, because God physically intervenes for Israel, and in this dispensation he does not, because it's the church age. He basically gave the church all authority. Remember, Germany killed 6 million Jews and prospered because God's not judging anybody right now. But the second America's taken off, the church is taken off the earth, you watch God intervene for Israel, literally right there to stop the people coming against it so that the heathen can see that he is God. What an amazing thing. It's like a movie where the hero comes in at the end and saves the day. So with all of this happening, it would be one thing if it was one or two things, but it's a myriad of 100 and something things, on to 200 something things happening that point to the King coming back. I mean, it's absolutely remarkable. And the thing that intrigues me about Israel is all the fighting against Benjamin Netanyahu or against this group or that group. You'd think there'd be some unity because they need to be unified so they can win these wars. Remember what happened in Genesis 11? Nothing would be restrained from them what they've imagined to do because they were saying the same thing. So what a time for us to see scriptures coming to pass right in front of our eyes. So all the war stuff that's happening, it's hard to get into all the Michelle's going back and forth and what's being fired back and forth because it's continuing on. But I believe it'll slow down, and I think with a few things happening to shut Hezbollah down, we'll see what happens next. I think the Houthis are going to come in crazy from the other side, and you'll see some things coming from the north that will be symptoms of what's going to happen right after the rapture of the church. So it's all building up to the pressure put on the earth for the Antichrist to come on the scene and go, okay, we're going to try to make peace. All the talk is right now, you've got to have a two-state solution. You know what happens there? You give up land for peace, it never works. So we'll watch it play out right in front of our eyes before we're raptured. So we always go to the scripture, though. What do we do? You know, this and that change and comes and goes, but the word of God never changes. So number one, Israel regathered in our lifetime. Number two, Jerusalem won back. Jesus said the group that sees those two signs won't pass away till all is fulfilled. But then you got the Hebrew language restored. You got the Ethiopian Jews brought back. You got the fertility of the land of Israel. You got the revival of the Roman Empire. You have the Capitol building in Strasbourg, France that's torn up at the top just like the Tower of Babel. Remarkable. So you have all these signs like this. You have 172 different species of predatory birds show up. The cleanup crew for after the Ezekiel 38 war, and the cleanup crew for after the Battle of Armageddon. And then you got foxes show up on the Temple Mount. You have fish show up in the Dead Sea. You have the Dead Sea turn blood red, literally where Sodom and Gomorrah was on the Day of Atonement. You have this week happening where they rebuilt a replica of the Ark of the Covenant. I mean, I think it was 17 different individuals from 3 different countries brought together. It's about a 3-ton Ark of the Covenant, a couple tons of acacia from Egypt, and a lot of gold that was put in Shiloh. And you know what happened right when they put that in Shiloh? That's when they killed Sinwar last week. And the Iranian government said that Israel is using magic to take them out. So we have all these signs, birds, fish, all these different ones, the ritual baths around the Temple Mount filling up with water. When's the last time that happened? 2,000 years ago. You have men will be lovers themselves. You have selfie sticks. You have Rabbi Yitzhak Kaduri prophesying that Israel would be ruled by 2 Benjamins just for the coming of the Lord. That happened a couple of years ago. You have the red heifers come from Texas into Israel. Their ears were not clipped because of COVID. They were the first time they didn't have a blemish. They started clipping their ears again right now. Well, before that, they couldn't use them. So that only during that time did they come perfect. And those cows are between 2 and 3 years. And that's when they're supposed to be used. They flew them as service animals. Can you imagine walking down the airport with service animals and their cows? So God knows how to get everything set up. So it's wonderful to see all these things come together because it literally is coming together. So there's sign after sign after sign after sign. They're not designed to scare you. They're there to bring you peace, showing you're headed toward your destination. So, all right, you got signs of the coming of the Lord. You go from signs to signals. You had blood red moons on Passover and Tabernacles. Remarkable Passover when he died for us, Tabernacles when he's coming back, going to dwell with men, tabernacle with men. So you had 4 in a row. NASA calls that a tetrad. When's the last time you had 4 in a row on Passover and Tabernacles? 1967 when Jerusalem was won back, 1948 when Israel was made a nation, and 1492 at the Edict of Expulsion when the Jews were kicked out of Spain. So remarkable events happening with Israel coinciding with blood red moons. Then after that, you got the Bethlehem star. You don't hear a lot preached about it, but when Jesus was born, you had Jupiter, a king planet, Regulus, a king planet, and Venus, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. They all came together. Regulus even did retrograde motion and crowned Jupiter. What was that for? The birth of Jesus. What was the constellation? Virgo. This last year, NBC Nightly News said we have a celestial event. We've got Jupiter, Regulus, Venus coming together. What is that? The Bethlehem star. What was the constellation? Leo. He's the lion of the tribe of Judah. So this is it. The King of Kings, Lord of Lords, bright morning star, lily of the valley, firstborn from the dead, the resurrection and the life, the brightness of the glory of God. We're about to see Him face to face. He died for us. He gave His life for us, and the King is coming back. What an event. We go up to meet Him in the air and physically come back with Him bodily at the second coming to the earth, and we'll watch every knee bow, every tongue will confess that He is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. So come back next week and we'll look at what all's happened. Tons of things are happening. Hard to get into all of it with all the firing going on, all the war going on. But the one thing it leads to is we're about to see the King. Wow. Have a blessed, wonderful week, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Thanks for joining us today at the End of Days Update. If you'd like to be notified every time there's a new post, just go to the edu at josephmorris.com and subscribe to receive email alerts. If these posts and updates have been a blessing to you, please consider making a one-time donation to help get the message out, or even becoming a monthly partner with Joseph Morris Ministries. Thanks again for tuning in to the EDU, and we'll see you next week.